Alright you lot, welcome back. You might remember that last week there was a new Space Marine showed off, and if I'm honest, I wasn't that excited. I wasn't hugely blown away. I wasn't sitting there thinking to myself, now this is going to get me thoroughly on board with a new big box for the new edition of 40k. In fact, the whole Space Marine side of things has felt a little bit lackluster so far, to the extent that I was starting to feel like the box might be one of those ones where one half of it is going to be absolutely solid, and the other half is going to be effectively a hard pass. Now, to be honest, I think quite a lot of us are kind of okay with the idea that if you're going to have one side of a box being super solid, it not being the Space Marine side is not the end of the world. And I'm not saying that as a sort of diss to Space Marine players or anything like that. It's more that Space Marines get a lot of love a lot of the time. They've got one of, if not the biggest range. Why even say one of? They've got the biggest range by far when it comes to Warhammer 40k, with a ton of variety within that range, and they are, of course, constantly getting fairly significant refreshes and updates on old kits. So if it's their turn to have a not so interesting half of a box, that's not the end of the world if the other half is getting something absolutely quality. And since this time around the other half are orcs, it would be really nice if they're going to get some really good stuff. With that in mind, there's a new Weirdboy, and this is him, and oh, good lord, I'm so happy. Like, oh god, I love this. I absolutely love this model. It's fantastic. Maybe a teeny tiny bit busy here and there, but overall, I think this is absolutely solid. It is grand. Now, obviously, I don't expect every single orc boy to look that good when we see the rest of the contents of the box. I'm not expecting that at all. But if the newer stuff, if the big chunky stuff like that weird walker we saw is anything close to being as cool as the new Weirdboy, I am 100% in, and then some. I actually don't want this one. No, I want this one instead. I couldn't make up my mind. Could not decide earlier whether I wanted some Raspberry Raptor Holy Energy or whether I wanted some honey and lemon and black tea, iced tea from Holy. So I did what any sensible functioning adult would do. I made both, and I've just been drinking both all afternoon. See, the thing is, I did ignore Raspberry Raptor for a little while. I did skip it in favour of the Thai Lime Toucan Holy Energy because that is such a good flavour. But the fact is, Raspberry Raptor was my first love, so I've gone back to it, and I'm still going back to all of my Holy stuff because I'm maintaining, for the most part, my embargo of carbonated beverages. I mean, I absolutely blasted through the starter set deluxe that Holy sent over to me, which is the best way to get into it in my opinion. There's a bunch of different flavours. Most of them are really nice. There's only a couple I didn't get on with, and the ones I did get on with, I've been drinking religiously ever since. And frankly, when I'm 2 hours into a Patreon episode recording session for acceptable losses, I need Holy Energy just to keep me going. It's zero sugar, it's less than £1 per serving, less than 20 kcal per serving. I mean, you might as well check it out using the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below. Use the code KIRIOTH5 for £5 off your first order, and KIRIOTH for 10% off after that. Thanks, Holy. Let's get back to this Weirdboy. Let's address the elephant in the room here first, right? There is a tactical rock. There is. To be fair, it's one of the most interesting tactical rocks that we've seen for quite some time. Very sort of blasted kind of landscape going on. Really like it. I think one of the reasons I like it so much, in fact, is because it kind of mimics the actual massive collar that the Weirdboy has got to some extent. You've got all these cables and stuff jutting out of the collar, and then beneath the feet of the orc, you've got a series of rocks that explode out in a similar fashion. There's a nice bit of symmetry there, which I'm assuming was 100% intended. I mean, if it wasn't, you've done something cool by accident. If it was, very nice work. I mean, to be fair, very nice work either way, but, you know, I like the fact that you've got that similarity from top to bottom, right? Now, that weird device and the staff that he's holding is to help control their abilities, in theory. I mean, whether that works or not is probably entirely down to whether the Weirdboy thinks it works. You kind of hope that it does, at least for a bit, because then he's less likely to fry his own side. But I really like the way they've done this. It does look like kind of random gubbins, but at the same time, it does look like someone has put random gubbins together to try and achieve a purpose. I think that's a fun line to walk. You could just look at it and go, yeah, it's a bunch of cables. But the fact you've got these different sections, these different attachments on the ends, the way one of the cables is just completely frayed and it's just a mess coming out at the end, it feels like someone sat down and went, all right, so if we do this, this should make it easier for him to do what he wants, without really knowing why or how that would work. Just the idea of, if you put this stuff on something, it might work. We'll give it a try. Sure, why not? It feels both kind of random, but also targeted at the same time. I really like the look of it. I think it looks super cool. It really adds a lot of mass to an already quite chunky boy, but not in a way that's overly distracting. I think it adds to the model as opposed to taking away from it. If it was super, super busy and you had 100 cables coming out, whatever, it would just make a really awful silhouette. This, I think, works pretty well. It also adds a kind of fun Medusa-esque element to the model, which, again, probably intentional, but I like it a lot. It's very threatening. There's just a feeling of energy and a feeling of something imminently about to go boom, which works super well. Having that bit of sculpted lightning going from part of the collar over to the staff is a very nice touch. This is one where I'm not sure how many people are going to love that, but I do. I think it airs more on the side of cartoony again. Like we saw with Wazdak Gutsmech, where you had that super cartoony kind of explosion coming out of the rocket booster. When we first saw that, it struck me that it looked like a panel out of a comic. I'm getting a similar vibe to that with this model, to a lesser extent, of course, but it is still there, and I just really, really like it. It feels like there's a proper meaty chunk of Wa energy flying out of this dude's collar. Or head. It might be head, actually. Now look at it. He's got a big transistor in his skull, and I think the energy might be coming off that. Either way, solid. Solid work. The eyes are suitably crazy. Really like those. The face is just all round very nicely sculpted. I do like the lack of armour and stuff on the Weirdboy here. I think it makes him look just a bit more primal. I will once again, by the way, point out ridiculous painting on the cloak. They've gone for that checked pattern, but it's dark and black and grey and fades into just... Oh, for God's sake, I want to be able to do that. And you don't have to tell me. I know I could probably achieve it with time. I could achieve it with time. You can achieve anything with time and practice, but I don't have the time for that particular level of practice, which is why it's upsetting. I can't do it now. I don't want to do the practice bit. I want to do it now, which is not physically possible, unfortunately, but there you go. So, yeah, I think overall this is super, super solid. The staff is very fun. Got a big old skull right in the middle. Nice bit of random assemblage around the outside. Looks a tiny bit sort of chaosy, but not fully. Mimics that bolt of energy coming out of the head as well, which is cool. And we haven't even looked at the back yet. We haven't even looked at the back of this lad, which relatively plain, but there's two things I really, really like, and they are sticking out of his shoulder blades. Well, sort of his shoulder, but close enough. You can see him. You can see him. Two of those big, what even are they? Look like energy cells or I don't know. I was going to say transistors, but that's not the right word. Whatever they are, those ones that are just plugged into his back and are still floating like the other ones attached to the collar, that just feels weirdly hardcore. I don't know why, but it does. I also love just how much strap work and big metal rings have gone into keeping that collar in place. It really feels like no one wants that collar to come off, right? You do not want the collar to come away from this particular orc. That would be bad. We will do everything we can with some of the thickest leather straps we've got and some of the chunkiest connecting rings to make sure that this lad does not ever lose that collar, because losing that collar could be absolutely disastrous for literally everyone around him. Given that Weirdboys sometimes, just occasionally, every now and again, their head might explode, right? And do significant damage to everyone around them. It's inconvenient, but it happens. It really feels like, okay, that collar's got to stay on because we know the head's going to go if it doesn't. We know the head is going to go if that collar does not stay in place. I will say as well, I really like the cloth there moving back as though it's being blasted back by wind. It really adds to that feeling of charging up and just about to blast. It's very good. It's very, very, very good. This, it's fair to say, is one of those miniatures where I just don't think I would change anything about it. And I can't help but tinker with miniatures. You know this. You know that I can't help myself. As soon as I get something, whether or not I intended to do it in the first place or not, I will always find something to switch about and change. This Weirdboy, no, absolutely nothing. I can't think of a single thing that you could do to improve it at all. I mean, sometimes it's not about improving, it's just about making your own. I don't even feel any sort of drive towards that, because I just think that has been sculpted super, super well. Absolutely love it. 10 out of 10. I will say, I don't want to get too rambly here, but I feel like this particular miniature has actually really reinforced to me that when I talked last week about being, like, are the new Space Marines boring, or am I just bored of Space Marines? I think really potentially what I said at the start of this video about one half of the box being a hard pass, I think right now I am more inclined to say that it is down to my personal thing of, I think I've just had enough of them. I think I'm just at a point where I'm finding other factions so much more exciting than Space Marines. I mean, when I look back at my overall, like, purchase history for Warhammer 40k, going all the way back to 3rd edition, like, I've always had at some point some form of Space Marine army. Like, at some point, there has always been on my shelves, whether it's a Chaos Space Marine army in the form of Iron Warriors, whether it's been a brief but quite intense Word Bearer's attempt for Horus Heresy, whether it's the 25 or however many Terminator army that I've got still behind me from years ago. When it comes down to the fact that when Primaris were released, I got the launch box and immediately started head swapping all of the intercessors and stuff. I've always had somewhere, in some way, some kind of Space Marine force. Even the stupid Dreadnought army was Space Marine Dreadnoughts. Like, I didn't even make a Death Dread army, which arguably would have been far more sensible. No, even when it comes to silly kit bash projects, I defaulted back to Space Marines. And it sounds weird, because I know I've said in the past that, you know, there have been times when I've just not been that interested or excited by the Space Marine releases. But it really does feel like a saturation point has been reached, at least when it comes to generic Space Marines, at least when it comes to ones that can serve in any chapter that lack those customization and personalization details that you get from chapter-specific Marines. Because this is the thing, I don't think that there is absolutely no scope to make Space Marines more interesting, and I don't think there's no scope to bring people back who have, you know, reached a point where they're just not that bothered by the faction overall. But I think a lot of that could be achieved by looking at chapters and bringing out Space Marines that are, you know, properly targeted and focused on those chapters. Like, when you look at what the Space Wolves stuff was like, I actually got excited about those because they looked properly like Space Wolves. I got excited because they felt like proper updates and recreations and faithful kind of reimaginings of stuff that we'd got before. Whereas when it comes to the generic Primaris stuff at this point, there isn't much that Games Workshop can necessarily do that hasn't already been done if you've been collecting Space Marines for a long time, you know? I think realistically right now, the Orc side of the box is just that much more interesting and that much more fun, because in the grand scheme of things, Orcs don't get as much stuff as Space Marines. No one gets as much stuff as Space Marines, whether it be generic or, you know, chapter specific. And the direction that they've taken with some of the new Orc models, like Wazdaka Gutsmech, like this Weirdboy, like the new Boss Knob, there's just something about them that feels fresh, that feels like they are, again, fun and interesting updates to stuff that we've had for a while. And the thing is, because Orcs don't get as much attention, because they don't get as much in the way of, like, turnover when it comes to miniatures, there's still an element of things feeling new, even if they are rehashes of things that we've already got. Doesn't feel like we get that as much with the generic Space Marine stuff anymore, at least not to me. Anyway, I am very happy with that Weirdboy. As you can probably tell, let me know what you think of that lad in the comments down below. Thank you again to Holy. Check them out using the link in the description and the pinned comment down below, and I will see you for the next one.